we do the same thing. We all have our own preconceived ideas about who God is and how God works and what it would mean for God to be with us, what that would look like, the difference that's going to make. If God is really with me, then it means X or Y, right? We all have our ideas and our expectations and our assumptions about that. And when God refuses to fit into the cookie-cutter mold that we create for God, and God says, guess what? I'm going to do it my way. Then oftentimes we struggle with that. And we say, where are you? Are you here? Right? Because it's not going according to the expectations that we have. And that's hard for us. We struggle with that. And so we question. The other thing that's going on with John in this particular moment is he's actually in a very precarious situation. This passage just kind of touches on it, but he's in prison. Herod has captured him, has imprisoned him, and we know from the gospel story later on that Herod is the one that actually ends up killing him. John is in very real danger, in very dire straits, not in a good situation. And I got to assume that, like most of us, when we find ourselves in those types of situations, John's probably asking a lot of questions about his life, about what he believes, about what he values, about this whole kind of Jesus thing and his role in it and what was that all about. And of course, asking, questioning, is God in any of this? Is God with me at all in the midst of this situation? And again, we do the same thing. Whether we ask it aloud or it's just internally in our mind, when we face those dark, difficult, harrowing, painful situations, it's not uncommon for us at some point to ask that same question. So on the one hand, this story serves as a reminder to us that as prominent and pivotal a figure as John the Baptist is, in the end, he's human, just like us, and struggles with some of the same issues and has some of the same reactions. Jesus' response to John's two disciples is interesting. It's interesting in a couple ways. One is, we don't get any sense that he really has much of a reaction to it. He's not angry for being questioned. Doesn't appear to be offended. Doesn't appear to have his feelings hurt. Well, what do you mean you don't think I'm the one? Right? That kind of stuff. Doesn't seem to be any of that. His response is simple, but it's very profound in its simplicity. Because essentially, Jesus answered to the two disciples. Jesus answered the question, are you the one? God, are you really with us? His response is, look around. Look around. Honestly, truthfully look and see. Really, really see what's going on around. Because he knows that when we do that, there is no question. When we're able to really and honestly look and truly see, there is no question about whether or not God is with us. But for us to do that often involves getting beyond ourselves. For us to really look and truly see, we have to be able sometimes to lift our gaze from our own expectations and our own situations. We can't just keep looking here all the time. Sometimes to really see that God is with us, we have to lift up our heads and look beyond ourselves to recognize it. That's what Jesus is saying here. That's what his response is about. The day after Christmas that year, I went back to the woman's house the next day and just to check in with her and also to begin to talk about funeral plans for her husband. And as I sat down at the table across from her, where we'd sat all afternoon the day before, I told her, I said, you know, I got to be honest and say, I'm not feeling like God was with either of us yesterday. She got this kind of surprised look on her face. She said, no, I don't agree at all. And I thought, wow. I just lost my dog, and I'm feeling this bad. And this woman's lost her husband in 30 some odd years. And so I said, well, why? I mean, what makes you say that? What makes you feel like, God was with you yesterday? And she looked at me and said, because you were. And then that made me remember some of what Kara had told me about her experience, about people that had come and had carried our dog back home for her because she had another one she was trying to walk, and he wasn't a small dog, it was like an 80-pound dog. But how these people came and how one offered their long, thick wool trench coat and used it as a sling to carry him quite a few blocks to get him back to our house. God was with us that awful, awful day. Not in ways that I expected, and not in ways that I could maybe see all that clearly, given my own grief and my own stress and my own frustration. But like I said, sometimes it's a matter of looking beyond, lifting our gaze and looking beyond ourselves, our own expectations, and our own situations, so that we can really, truly see God's presence with us.